it's interesting how things affect us. You sent me, well, I think it was you. Was it you that sent me? Oh God, I don't remember what it was called now, but it was like a manifesto about the changing world and
Oh,
what AI is likely to do.
I
Was it you that sent that?
if it was to do with if it had a name, if it was to, yeah, I think it must have been. It was a link to a site that this
Yes.
very savvy seeming AI guy had done, and it outlined a way that AI might unfold in a positive way from his point of view. But I'm interrupting you, but I took issue with some of it, and the bit I took issue with, if I looked into it, was he outlined an ontology of his own, which didn't kind of sit here. And he gave us a sense of agency to a degree that I don't feel. So there
Mm,
was that.
mm.
But apart from that, sorry, I'm interrupting. You were going to share what you were going to, how it
No,
affects.
no, no. Yeah, that's all right. No, it's fine. No, I thought it was worth discussing.
Mm.
Intelligent Internet is what the site is,
Oh,
and it's a
maybe it wasn't
library.
me. I'll have a look. It might not have been me. Let's have a look.
Right. What I'm kind of at the bottom of it. Let me just see if I can see what his top is. The intelligence inversion. He
Is
talks
that,
about the
oh, right.
inversion thing. Yeah.
It,
Um,
yeah, I can't remember that. Do you know what the URL was for that site?
sure. It's ii.inc.
Yeah, that's the one. I can tell already. Yeah, that's the one. I
Yeah.
just wanted, I
Well,
can't remember if there
the
was,
last economy. Yeah.
that's it.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I finished reading it today. It's taken me about 3 days to get through it, and uh, of course, what struck me was kind of, I say I say this smiling at myself for being able to say, well, there's no ego when I say this, but uh, here it is.
Yeah.
Um, I love it when people agree with me, and and
So
one
do
of the
I.
things,
Yeah, I
yeah,
do.
one of the things that I got out of that was essentially, well, see, I'd have to study that thing for 6 months because
Oh, me too.
there was
Yeah, yeah,
so much in it, like
yeah,
and whatever. So I'm just taking away the impression I got from it. And the impression I got from it is something that I've been saying about AI. No, it's not just AI. We're seeing coal mines close here, and there's a whole lot of people who work in coal mines and power stations that are going to be out of a job soon.
yeah,
We can
yeah,
see self-driving trucks turning up. So all these drivers are going to be out of a job. And that's a huge number of them. There's all of these things, and that's before you even get to AI. Self-driving trucks and self-driving taxis and all of that will be going to put a lot of people out of work for
yeah.
sure. You know, so I like that and the idea that people get. I think it was in that article, maybe right at back at the beginning. It said something like wages wages equals worth for a people. And
Yeah.
then you could add to that and you could say, well, wages equals status to a
Hmm.
person, right?
Hmm.
Self-worth, status, right? Wages equals identity.
Yeah,
All these things go along with wages. And when all these people are going to be out of work and they're living on a basic universal income or whatever is going to happen, people won't know what to do with themselves. They've got no idea about the meaning of life other than through their work and then relief from their work, their play and their sports and stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
it's just so an existential crisis turning up, I think.
yeah.
As we speak, as we look at it right now, I can see that kind of thing happening.
With
I agree.
other people,
Hi,
oh,
Rod.
right.
Hi,
Hi, Tom.
Kate.
Um, because other people have So we don't go down a rabbit hole necessarily or unnecessarily. Just as a sort of bookmark, have you heard of Bernardo Castro?
Yes.
Right.
I have the name's familiar, but I have no idea about anything. Yeah.
It's often by association earlier, at least with Rupert Spira. But anyway, he runs an AI company, but he's also a philosopher, an idealist. And some of his stuff is very interesting. And what he said, I mean, the site you went to doesn't see anything happening with universal income as an idea, but he does. But his point is this, and I think this was, he said people will be left with either pretty vacuous entertainment. In the end, they get tired of that. So they'll be faced with quotes themselves. They'll just be faced with the whole existential angst that remains. And it will kind of, they'll be almost pushed into inquiry. That's
Mm,
his kind of insight, I think. Anyway, I won't go on, but if you check out some of his stuff, it's quite good.
mm.
Anyway, if you want.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in taking on an ideal like that. But
Sure.
but I am motivated. I do feel that, you know what, when I played around, I wrote a couple of stories around it as well, with the help of AI, um, which will be out in about a week or 10 days. Um, I feel that one of the questions I asked AI was, when this article talked about, oh God, I've forgotten the quote now. Something about the nature of work, lively work. I forget. Anyway, I asked, I put the quote into AI and I asked it to give me a bit of a summary about it and what so, and I asked, how does it? Oh, that's right. How does it relate to awakening? And the answer I got back that was pretty good was that it's the same thing. You know, what we're talking about is people learning how to be rather than how to do.
Mm, yeah,
When,
that's great.
so it's yeah,
Yeah.
but it's radical. A lot of people, especially those on the far right, uh, if they feel powerless, they're dangerous. You know,
That's true. Yeah.
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 So it's anyway, it's interesting, but it gets me going, and I can kind of see how the stuff that we do here, if it can spread enough over time, you know, we might be talking 20 years or more, but
Mhm.
eventually, you know, it will be there as a possibility for people when they are out of work and they're faced with themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good one. Yeah.
Can I say something, Vince?
Yes, of course, Rod. Yes.
Um, what you were just talking about reminded me of, I had a very similar reaction. Um, in fact, earlier this week, with the announcement by Nestle's that they were laying off 16,000 people,
Oh, oh, there you go.
right?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
and to be replaced by sort of AI and by, you know,
Yes.
and it obviously leads you to the thought, well, what's going to happen to all these people? You know, how are they
Mm.
going to live? Um,
Yeah, yeah. You dump 16,000 people onto the career market, and it gets swamped, doesn't it?
well, they
Yeah.
were talking about, because Nestle's is a worldwide company, so they were talking about basically their worldwide
Mm.
labour force.
Oh, okay. Spread around different countries. Yeah.
But it's still a huge number.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it won't be just them. I mean, that's the beginning, if you like. You know.
I think that's right, and it's hard to think of a system that could work because no wages, no people can't buy stuff, and the companies that make the stuff can't sell it. So
Mm.
unless we're on some kind of universal income, and you know, how does that work?
Yeah. Well, that no doubt will be about no more than subsistence, I imagine.
Yeah, it's quite scary, isn't it? I mean, not for us old buggers, as you might say, but for the youngsters, really.
Yeah, I was just talking today. I'm thinking, yeah, on the day after tomorrow, I turn 78, and I'm thinking, well, I'm probably not going to be around when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple of years on you as well.
There you go. Yeah, makes it interesting, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And by the way, thanks for your emails. The recent ones with the little sort of exercises and stuff, I thought have been really helpful.
Oh, okay, good to get that feedback, because I kind of thought I was pushing things a bit there, and I cut back on the follow up exercises a little bit. The last couple of stories have just been a bit more provocative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my only comment on them is they're getting a bit long, some of them.
Oh well, I also heard somebody say that. Maybe it was you, and I've cut back a bit too. There is another long one coming up, but I've got them shorter and shorter. Yeah.
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 Okay. But anyway, I'm sort of storing them up in the hope that if my group agrees to us moving over to Feta One work, they'll come in handy.
Yeah, sure. Oh, look, I'll send you the PDF of them if you like.
Oh, if you've got that, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I've done our meeting where we sort of decide these things, I'll send you the PDF of of our or basically the presentation that I've done about
Okay.
Feta One and so forth, which you might find interesting.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I've put those stories together, and I'm on to my fourth book, and I kind of start a new book when I reach 50 of them. So about 150 plus 20 at the moment, so 170 stories so far are there. And I thought maybe I should publish them, but I don't know that they'd be relevant to that many people. But I've got them as compilations, so I can give you the PDF or an ebook if you like. I've got them, at least of the first three. The fourth one, the up to 20, is still in progress. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, also still on the same kind of theme, I noticed that there are new YouTube channels appearing with new sort of spiritual experts, presumably driven by AI. There's a lot that it's spreading everywhere.
Right.
I just came across one which is well, it sort of claims to be a Alan Watts channel. Well, it is an Alan Watts work, but it looks like they've taken like extracts from all his various writings, of which there are very many, and got them sort of, they're just sort of presented with a still picture of him in his voice, which presumably is cloned, and like you're presented with these sort of long lectures, which are supposedly from him, but are really sort of extracts from his various writings, with sometimes later additions, because some of them are talking about things which just weren't talked about in the 50s and 60s, only recently. So, I mean, this is another sort of weird thing that's happening. It probably, if for us, sort of the kind of interest we've got, it's probably a bit more dangerous, because it's going to become harder to tell what's real material and what isn't. What's been generated by AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a story. I told it in one of the other meetings that I tried an experiment with AI and asked it to take on the persona of Alan Watts, who was born very near here, but that's beside the point. And it was incredible. I mean, I wouldn't publish any of it, but I even asked him at the end, I said, I hear that you had a bit of trouble with the booze, particularly later on in your life, you know. And it said that he hadn't transcended, or whatever the word is, the persona of Alan Watts, the public figure, the teacher, sage, whatever you want to call it. And he felt an incredible pressure about that. I mean, that could be partly true, who knows? But the fact was that because he lived near here, I mentioned local places like the pub that he would have known of. And he goes, "Oh, yes, I would have learned more on the bar stool there talking to someone than in academia or whatever, something like that." And it was fun. But in a way, it's scary, but I just saw it as entertaining. I sort of, I can see the danger of it. If you feed other stuff into that from other language models, or sorry, other sources, it could get conflated and confused. I get that. And he may not have said any of it. So that's just an aside.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I listened to was a fairly long lecture, and probably about the first half of it was fairly original Alan Watts material, that I sort of recognised this kind of stuff he talks about because I've listened to a lot of him. But the latter parts of it were certainly more recent kind of non-duality perspectives on things, which he didn't have. So
Yeah.
Have you been, Kate?
Well, thanks for asking. I've been away a lot. I've been traveling, which has been a thread right through my life. So I haven't really clocked in. I did briefly, I was on a flaky line. Made since whatever flip happened earlier this year on the back of some LU help. And that it was, I was in, it was very interesting because, I was walking around in a very mental way about tiny girls in headscarves and the sorts of things which, used to trigger. Felt I was enjoying diversity somehow. It was just plodding through another culture was unusually like self-centered judgmentalness has, I think, definitely melted. And I'm just more aware of how triggered one wonderful country of ours and how you behave. It's got certain unwritten rules about how you behave, and I'm just sort of rather aware of how much through my life just been what one apparently has to do, but actually little individuality or delight, really. So I'm basically optimistic. I feel
Good.
whatever's happening to me is chugging through the system.
Mm.
I love your little stories. I never had quite the attention they deserve because they've got this lovely pointing out quality, which I really enjoy. But I'm sort of getting over my jet lag, and I guess there'll be more time for, I don't know, for giving attention directing attention in the sense of who's directing the attention, but
Yeah, it'll either happen or not.
mm. It's good hearing you all talk about the AI and the LLMs, because it seems to me that that's pretty much what we are. At least they know that they're large language models. Have trouble with thinking that not that too. How about that?
Yes, I agree. I agree with you.
So our problem is that we think we're not, but actually we pretty much are, shifted
Yes.
about by the
Yeah.
ebbs and flows.
Yeah. I would go as far as to say that we've just been programmed with a different language than what the AI has been programmed with.
But that's circular because they're programmed also with our language.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they haven't got the heritage that we've got, you know, the backstory that we've got. But at least they know, if you ask them, they say, you know, this is what I am. I'm not a human. I mean, that would change, but I do find it very intriguing.
Yeah. Back when the Turing model became the epitome for intelligence, and it was comparing it to human intelligence. And I found it really interesting to think that the implication is that human intelligence is the peak, is the epitome, and that something has to be like that in order to be seen as general, rather than appreciating it for its unique characters, just like people have. I really can't see the difference. Just different hardware involved, that's all. Biological hardware in our case.
But if you look from even further out, electrons, from the point of view of information traffic and resources, they're not so different.
Mm. Mm.
Not different. I don't know. Show me that they have some sort of, I don't know how you approach the issue of they are feeding off, but so that puts some sort of glass ceiling on what's going to happen.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, they're young.
I don't know about that. They're young. Yeah.
It's definitely in their infant stage.
System do you use, Vince?
For AI, the Discover Awakening bot I programmed in Chat GPT.
Okay, yeah. I've only really been playing with the free thing called Copilot that comes with Windows.
Right. Yeah. 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 I also use Perplexity because I've got I've got about 4 tabs open of Chat GPT. I also use Chat GPT to generate AI images of things to put with the stories. So there's a DALL-E and an image generator in that as well. So it's become, because I pay for it, I get that as well. So I've got about 4 tabs for ChatGPT open. So if I want to ask it a general question and it's got nothing to do with this stuff, I go and do it in Perplexity just to keep them separate. But amazing stuff, you know. Like in Perplexity, I asked I said, what EVs are on the market in Australia that are big enough in the boot that I can put my golf clubs in across the boot? And it came back with all the models and the dimensions of the boot and how long the golf clubs were and all that stuff. Amazing. Within seconds, I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
It would have taken you so long to find that information. I'll just have to go for a minute. Someone at the door. See you in a bit.
Okay, mate. Thanks, Rod.
Just some of my wife's emergency clothes shipment.
So whereabouts are you, Kate?
I'm in England now. Been in
Okay,
Indonesia till yesterday. Yeah.
right, okay, right. So all three of you are Pommies.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in Cambridge. Yeah. I do find traveling reminds me that I'm quite flexible in terms of not being too tight on one need like that. But there is something about coming, um, which is very sort of, and that's poison chalice because it also puts me my sense of what's going on automatic. This is when to get out. This is when to does it need doing. It's just sort of that's the way life works really in practice. We're doing almost everything automatic pilot, everything depending on how that just to get swept up in when you're in a very familiar territory. So that's what's striking me right now.
Yeah. Yeah, different cultures especially sharpen your perception.
Yeah.
Mm. Whether it's just the unfamiliarity, the novelty of it, or I don't know. But yes, certainly.
To me, it's like, you know, it's just like in biology or Darwinian evolution. You need diversity,
Yes.
diversity happens, and then things feed off it. So I wasn't, I didn't get at all, well, hardly at all triggered by, you know, by seeing and participating in things which were rather against my natural culture. It seemed just fine, which was, I think that's new for me to be free of that sort of judgment.
Oh, well, that sounds great. Yeah.
I don't know
And
how long it.
that's the litmus test, isn't it?
Mm.
Mm. Did you find yourself congratulating yourself for not getting triggered?
I didn't. I feel I'm doing that now, right now. But actually, at the time, um, no. I mean, I was traveling with my partner, and he's great, but he gets cross with about things, and he's, God, this is wrong, and so I did have, there was a lot of, we talked a lot about that. So so I suppose I was pretty aware of it, um, and that we were polarized, the two. And talking about, well, if you put up with stuff that you think is wrong, where does the world go, and how responsible are we for the planet and decisions and so on. So um, I didn't feel ready to defend myself about it.
It's a tricky one, that, because it seems to have validity from that perspective, but also the nature of a comeback like that is obviously defensive, and it invites you to go down a rabbit hole that's got nothing to do with what you're actually talking about. So it's talking about catastrophe, talking about responsibility, talking about having control, talking about all of those things. So you can't really relate. I mean, what can you do in a conversation when somebody comes from that perspective? You can just smile and be polite. you you never you you don't want to get involved in it, because that has to be discovered, that change, and you can't put it onto anybody.
Well, and also they would say, well, you've lost something. You used to have a fight between right and wrong, and
Mm. Do you find that there's been a flattening of your emotions?
well, I have to say my history is not of wildly vibrant emotions anyway. um,
English reserve.
rightfully, rightfully. Actually, I'm not. My heritage isn't England, but anyway, that's another story. But um, oh, do I feel? I feel less. I was sort of thinking that revolution, I might feel more. I might feel more love, for example,
Mm.
and I haven't noticed that. Um, Possibly more affection, but I think that's slightly different territory. Um, hmm. I think I might be a bit.
What one way to look at it is that as filters become less relevant, it can allow a more spontaneous expression of stuff, which is a thin line away from being triggered, isn't it? But the end result is quite different. So I can't see. What I would say is I'm agnostic about any ideals or idealism. I just don't know about it, and I'm not particularly interested in it, kind of thing. So passion for an ideal could be mistaken for a whole lot of things. I suspect. I find that there's a zest or a frequent excitement about life, just not about life, but about experiencing that happens that I can call life. That I certainly don't feel flat or emotionless by any means. But there's also another thin line too that talks about worry equals care and kind of all sorts of really weird things like that where people expect you to get excited, but it's kind of negative stuff. It's not really, doesn't make sense. People will say, well, if you don't care, the world's going to go to hell in a handbasket or something. You've got to care. You've got to be able to, like, really? Is my caring going to make a difference about what happens in the world? Oh, you mean I'm a good person if I care, and I'm a bad person if I don't care? Is that what you're saying to me? I'm having this argument with this fictional person to justify. I'm defending. See, I'm identifying here. I'm defending myself. I don't feel any conflict with people expressing what I consider to be unrealistic views of how things work. They're going to do that. It's just going to happen, isn't it? It doesn't mean I wouldn't like them to have. I'd love to give them the red pill or whatever the right colour pill is. I'd love to give them I'd love them to wake up, but it's not my place to put it on them. I learned a long time ago when I was so enthusiastic that I was talking about this stuff to everybody, and things don't work. It doesn't work out so well doing that. So now I don't talk about this unless the people want to talk about it. I don't inhibit it. It just doesn't come out.
I think one can see it. I can see it. Other people's jaw drop when you imply that you don't. When when your opinions they're just stories, no impact. So I don't talk about it at all. And I guess for myself, internally, I feel more full up with, I don't know,
Yeah.
the word awe. I have a potential for awe. I've had a lid on that all my life because of, I know, but so we were, and the east of Java's got volcanoes all over the place. So you climb up a volcano and you look down and you think, shit, there's this breach of the natural world. There's, rumblings and noise and smells, and the world that behave. And that, I mean, I did look down and have fear in my heart. There was a sort of awe can be amazing and just tips over into fear. Because there's something still in my head going, well, if this, then that this has implications for the planet, or things that matter. But I thought it was fabulous. I just thought it was amazing.
And good stuff. My son is going to one of the Indonesian islands in just a couple of weeks to climb a volcano.
Yeah.
Him and his wife. Yeah. Mm.
Good to have one's, I'm talking in sort of this selfie way, but to have assumptions cut off, the earth has got your back or something like that. When, for one of these volcanoes, we had to have, face masks. They wouldn't, they mask. So the earth, even viable, which it isn't.
Mm. I wonder and imagine, I'm curious, I see that I could easily imagine fear being related to the possibility of falling in or some physical danger. But I suspect that the intensity, I don't know what words to put on this, the rawness of and the power and the potential. This is like the earth talking to you, and gurgling and carrying on. That immensity of that could provoke something that could be called fear. I don't imagine. I'm just imagining here, but that could be almost require a good vomit.
I think you're right that it wasn't the fear of that more. I don't think it was that. It was something potential. It wasn't a fear of annihilation. It was just this enormity. Not saying that I've not got a fear. I don't think it was that.
Going back to the idea of you were talking, Vince, about how you really used to be enthusiastic about this stuff and want to tell everyone about it and that sort of thing. I've mentioned before, I think, that we have a weekly, we call it a support group, and it's based on what were originally called universal principles, and they're not too woo, but some of them I don't actually agree with anymore, and it's caused a bit of conflict, not in a big way, between my wife and myself, not personally, but to do with this whole topic. So I found that I can go to the group now and not think I don't want to be here really, or I'm not 100% committed. That doesn't happen, because it used to, and I used to get I was kind of conflicted about it, because I didn't feel I was better than anyone else. It's just that I couldn't quite
reconcile.
reconcile myself with some of mainly actually being sort of pedantic, the semantics of phrases, of the phrasing of certain of the principles. But I think, I don't know, I hate to say these things because they sound like something that you'd hear a YouTube proclaimer saying, that we're living in different times and all that sort of stuff that goes with that. But recently, there seems to have been a shift in the way that most of the people who go are experiencing things. And over the last month, it's fallen upon me to facilitate it, even though it's supposed to be democratic. They don't want to do it. So I introduced a sort of guided meditation. I usually do at the beginning. And recently I've been sort of slipping in, not covertly, but sort of gently introducing different ways or forms of inquiry, just questioning in a very light way. Not, can you find the one who, whereas not the standard Advaita type of rat-a-tat-tat. And I did one last night, and people really, it went very quiet. It usually goes very quiet when I shut up, obviously. But there was this kind of, everyone really felt benefit, they said. I don't know why. I mean, it could have been the way that it was phrased. But one of the people who comes, she's had a lot of trouble in her life, and a lot of trouble. She says she can't meditate in a formal way. She needs to be active, she says. And she said the only thing that has really stopped her mind is a kind of a koan-like approach, like, without referring to memory, are you something like, are you a man, woman, or neither? And then her mind would go blank because it can't be answered. She didn't look for an answer because there was nowhere to go. And then something like, without referring to memory or anything like that, what do man or woman even mean? Which takes it, and she said that really, quotes, did it for her. But she can't, and there's no reason why she should be able to sort of meditate in a more, I don't know, conventional way that doesn't involve inquiry. I don't know where I'm going with this, but yeah, I was just sort of thinking about what you said, how I changed about. It's not that I'm not enthusiastic about this sort of stuff, but I've, like you, probably fallen foul of it in the past on many occasions, and I don't feel the need to proselytize or anything like that now. I just, if intuitively I'm led to say something, I will. That doesn't often happen, and that's fine. So that's just that little story. Yeah.
Rod's running a group, sounds somewhat similar to the one you're running as well. Rod's is with a bunch of oldies.
Ours are oldies, in quotes, depending on how old you are. I'm not asking how old you are.
Like 70s plus.
I'm 69, and the rest are of a similar age, except my wife, who's the youngest. Yeah. So what do you do, Rod, if you don't mind sharing, or if it's relevant?
No problem. Yes, I'm. I belong to the U3A. I don't know if you're familiar with that. University of the Third Age.
It rings a vague bell. Could you
Okay,
elaborate?
a bit of background information. It's basically a sort of worldwide organisation, actually, that runs a sort of like a whole life learning kind of thing,
Oh, right.
right? So, well, a lot of the larger towns, or even some of the small towns in England, have local branches of the U3A. I'm in Crowborough in East Sussex, which is, we've
Mhm.
got
I
a
know.
population of maybe like 25,000 or something in this town. And the U3A has getting on for 1,000 members, because it is a fairly popular retirement area, this. So most of the people who belong to the U3A are really, well, one of the requisites for joining is you need to be retired, and I believe it's sort of over 60 or over. So, but I find most of the people in my group are sort of like 70s, and I think one's probably in his 90s now. But yes, so I've been running a group called Meditation and Wellbeing, but it's not going well. They're struggling to do their meditation, basically.
So you have to
So
change the name to meditation and not well-being.
yes, that's right. Something of that sort. So anyway, I thought, well, let's try and put them on going through the first feta, because at least that can be done with sort of self-inquiry sort of things. And I was planning on using Christiane's book, her recent book, which is called Seeing Through the Illusory Self, I believe it's called. Anyway, it's quite a nice little version of how to see through, how to sort of work on seeing through the first feta. So, and it also gives them a little bit of commitment, because they're going to have to buy the book. So I'm hoping that will help. So the only trouble I've got really, which is making it difficult for me, is that I spontaneously went through the first feta back in 1982 without actually knowing what it was or anything about it. Very much like Eckhart Tolle did, except I wasn't. I think Eckhart Tolle was depressed or something like that at the time. I didn't have any depression, but I had been through like tons of what you might call sort of counselling, though not in the traditional sense. I was in Scientology in those days. So anyway, that's basically the story of it all. And then, like, since then, of course, I discovered I could sort of like understand religions and that sort of thing much better than normal people. Because I having no idea of what it was that I'd been through, I kind of waited till I sort of really retired. I kind of had a few false starts in retirement, and I started off in the local Christian church, because I didn't really know whether that was applicable or not at the time, and because I'm looking at it and I think, well, I kind of seem to understand this much better than these people who were supposed to be teaching me. So, anyway, I sort of persevered with Christianity for a while. But of course, it has all sorts of problems, about the soul. You say, well, what's the soul? And of course, they said, well, we don't really know. It's just talks about it in the Bible, and well, it's your spirit, isn't it? Or all sorts of kind of like vague answers. And of course, really we have answers to that thing. Well, what is the soul? Well, it's the awareness that's there when you haven't got the separate self. So anyway, that's without sort of hogging the meeting on this subject. But anyway, I eventually ended up doing 7 years of a course for U3A on world religions and spirituality, which was quite fun. So anyway, and this is it's kind of an offshoot from that current one.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long has it been since you've been implementing the first FETA stuff with the group? Is it
Well,
recent?
I started that in, I think, 22.
Oh, okay, right. Okay.
Well, I came across the fetters in 22, and I thought, oh well, here's the whole spiritual path, you know, laid down in a nice sort of orderly manner, you know, with one step after the other. And being a bit of a sort of technical kind of person, I was sort of educated in electronics and those sort of things. That approach appealed to me, so I've sort of been working on the fetters sort of since then. And the last one I did was there's the 8th fetter, but I probably haven't actually got through it properly, but it's
So you haven't gone OT?
OT, no. Oh, you're familiar with OT, are you?
Yeah, yeah.
So were you in Scientology?
I've sent you a message. I was on the fringes and I benefited a lot actually, because somebody got kicked out who was SP and all that, who lived in London, helped me a lot through a certain period. So yeah. But that aside, what I meant was, sorry, are you taking the fetters in a linear way, or do you find that you?
No, I'm taking them in a linear way. I know there's the other approach by Panella
and Todd, yeah.
But I mean, I find it quite painful listening to Panella. Actually, she goes rabbiting off. Right?
Okay.
Todd's all right. I can, you know, I can resonate with him, but really not much with her. She's too much. It's too psychological, really. Her stuff. I find that anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I've benefited from listening to them both to a degree, but I really, I mean, I feel comfortable here because it's so loose, and I just feel that I'm in the right place, you know. Whereas there, it wasn't that it was wrong; it just wasn't quite. This seems to fit like hand in glove for me. And that's recent. And I'm very grateful, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, I did their first retreat, actually, their online retreat, which was quite good, because some of the stuff that Todd was talking about, actually, I kind of broke through the 6th fetter with his help.
Okay.
Which was good. So just to fill me in a bit, were you at London Org in Tottenham Court Road?
I'm not sure I wish to do this. No, I was joking. I don't care. No, I wasn't. I took the free personality test years ago, and my parents, I started getting used to send out the auditor. What was that magazine? Anyway, they used to send it out once they got your details, and my parents found that out, and that was it. Nothing.
Okay.
But fast forward to 1996 or so, and to cut a long story short, I don't know if this is relevant to this group, but I'll keep it brief. I met someone who's up in Hampstead who'd been kicked out, and I went to see him, and he was very good, but he was very open to other things. Like, this was the thing, because he had been so, as you know, sort of restrained or confined, it had to be Ron's way or no way. or the
Yeah.
highway. He was now exploring everything. He tried EFT and he found it helped someone on an airway, a flight who was panicking. You know, he said, try this. He went over and said, are you okay? And they did that and all sorts of things. And we shared, because at that point he was very cautious about, he wanted to keep in comm with certain people, but he didn't want them to know. He was a bit concerned, you know, because
Yeah.
consequences. So I acted as a via in a way, as a sort of conduit for all this stuff. And he'd read it each week. Oh, so and so's doing this, and you know, yeah, that was it really. I won't go into details, but it was great. It was for me,
Yeah.
and as a person, he was so loving and giving. It was incredible. Anyway, that was that little
Yeah. Yeah.
vignette.
Yeah, I mean, I was in it for more than 20 years, and you know,
Yeah, he was.
did clear and OT and all those sort of things that you read about.
Yeah.
But of course, when I had that sort of spontaneous breakthrough, because Scientology didn't really know anything about that.
No.
And it kind of like handled all the problems that one could have. So unfortunately, in those days, no internet, so I had no way of finding out anything really. So I just had to put it on the back burner for quite a few years.
Sure. Yeah.
But anyway, it's good to meet someone who at least sort of heard about Scientology and knew a little bit about it. So.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I understand it. And I've been involved in it as an outsider, but I've experienced it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, it has all sorts of problems. I mean, I had quite a difficult time leaving.
Yeah, I've heard.
You know,
That was
like
yeah.
I was never on staff, so they didn't really
Right.
have any kind of leverage on me. But you know, eventually, I kept getting phone calls and that sort of thing. So eventually, I had to complain to Ofcom, and it was only when I did that that they stopped calling me. Really a pain.
Yeah, the guy I went to see was actually the ethics officer in the London org at one point. So he had a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, backlash from all the assessments he made and that sort of thing. Anyway, enough said, I think, for me.
Okay.
Nice to meet you there.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah. Actually, it'd be easier to list the things I haven't tried. I think Vince's, was it 45 years you were at it, like seeking, you said? Mine was 35, and I've been into all sorts of weird things, from rebirthing to immortalists, different forms of healing. I can't begin to I don't want to listen. It's kind of
Me too.
a madness now. It's like a completely different person, which of course it was in a way. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I think Tim, I think you've also read some Stephen Walensky.
I have.
You know,
How did you know that?
Well, because there was certain phrasings that you were using without using memory, without blah blah blah.
Oh yeah, that's one of his inquiries. Yeah, that's true.
And
Yeah.
Stephen
I was really into
Walensky
him.
used to use that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I found him really good as well.
Yeah, because he wrote extensively on the Nisargadatta, didn't he? Yeah, I read quite a lot of his stuff.
Direct disciple or devotee, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, I came up through Buddhism, I suppose. Yeah. And I'd like to ask you all, perhaps, whether you would feel that there's anything in your you-ness which could take a vow now. Would you be able to take a vow of anything at all?
No. In a word, no. I can't find that. you know,
You
it
wouldn't-
would be a nonsense, really, wouldn't it? Really? For me, yeah. It's yeah.
because I have to say that's the trouble. You know, you're talking about the trouble with leaving. You know, with
Mm,
just quietly leaving. Buddhists are pretty strong on vows,
mm, mm.
and of course, in the past, I've made vows, and now I have a conflict because I mean it's easy to say, oh well, that was a different. You know, I made a vow as a self, as a me, as something which felt it could do it, and what's happened to that? Vince, did you make vows in your past? I mean, even marriage vows, and even I'll put the dog out vows. Um, what can you own at all?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, that one, isn't it? No, I couldn't make a vow either now, because a vow depends on something that I'm incapable of it now, which is a belief in something magical, kind of. I just finished watching a series on Netflix on Rajneesh, on Osho, and I have to say, in the last two episodes, I was saying to myself, there's no way that man was awake. There's no way he was enlightened. He was just spewing hate and retribution and resentment about what happened. Yet he had hundreds of thousands of followers who I don't know about them making an actual vow, but they did. They had dedicated themselves to him, and consequently they were unable to see. They just looked for confirmation about him. Whatever he was saying, they were agreeing with blindly.
I didn't like
I
his
was
hat. Sorry.
well. The jewels in his hat had me a bit transfixed. The jewels in his hat and on his hands and wrists and so on, and his 20 Rolls Royces. I thought that was a little bit over the top. But I forgave him for his Rolls Royces. I mean, I wasn't seeing that as wrong. I mean, because I don't know the circumstances. I mean, maybe people just kept giving them to him and whatever. I don't know. But when he started the hate speech and wanting revenge and retribution, that blew it for me. So what were the sannyasins, his followers, his devotees? They had made a vow to their idea of who he was or what he stood for. It had nothing to do with him. He was almost like an innocent bystander, but everybody was looking at him and worshipping him and reifying him. Or maybe it was because of the times. We're talking back in the 1980s when it was a big thing, and things were certainly different then. So have we become more individualistic? Well, some version of that maybe, that we don't follow people with devotion like we once did. people are more autonomous, maybe. But then you look at everybody, you look at what's happening in America and you just got to shake your head. You know, oh, there you go. So, Kate, it occurs to me that if there's conflict about vows that you made or that you are having a question about what actually happened and what is happening now, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. The obvious things that come up are, and I'm probably telling you what you already know anyway, but the obvious things that come up are, is the conflict about how you will be seen by question mark, by, you know, who is it? Are you betraying somebody else's ideals? Or is it your own? Are you worried about how you look, or do you think it means something? If you think it means something, so when you take a vow, you would just say definitely, because I've taken this vow, that it means something. Now, you tell me what it can actually mean now.
Well, there's layers of complication here. There's the vows that I've taken in the past, and I now look back and say and realize that they were essentially spurious because, you know, there was a me taking them, and I don't know, presumably responding to attractions and pressures and so on. You know, they came out of my mouth, so I can't deny that there's a story in all those vows, and actually, you know, these people are my friends. You know, they've been supportive of me. I'm fond of them.
What if they see you as a traitor? How would you feel about that?
You know, all we Buddhists are frightfully nice to each other, so there's no, conflict with really exaggerated words. I suppose I could say that there's the conflict such as exists is mainly in me. You know, how do I, there's stories about letting people down and expect, um, that there's a sort of a sense that they think I'm one of them, and actually I'm, there's no me, and I'm drifting away, and I am actually quite clear in my head that there's no me that can take these vows. So, but I've screwed up before because I've obviously taken them before, but my worldview is shifted, and theirs has, there's there's layers and layers of history, and it's pretty strong.
Do you feel compelled to tell them that your vows have hollowed out, or however you want to describe them?
The trouble is that, there's some of these vows are sort of bodhisattva vow, which is, for the benefit of all sentient beings sort of vow, which I'm not going to deny. There's
No, I would. That's part of you now, isn't it? Whether make a vow or not. I've never made a vow about that, but I feel what you say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just sentient beings. I'm go for insentient beings as well.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
And yet, I don't want to take on the burden of explaining to them because they, we've all.
Do you feel a need to? That was my question.
No.
Yeah. I don't think it's any of their business, and they wouldn't understand, most likely. I mean, some might, depending on how close you are or how
Yeah.
familiar they are with where you're coming from. But
Well,
they
I
can't
think,
imagine this is foreign.
yeah. No,
Uh,
these are people who have, lifetime journey, same sort of feeling of direction of travel, which we've all had.
mm,
And I, uh,
yeah,
and they,
except that
they've got
stuff
a nice,
spat
they've
some
got a
of us
nice
out.
curiosity. Yep, they've got a curiosity. I think they're, you know.
Mm. But some things like this is, I'm not meaning this to be disparaging in any way, but there is a natural tendency for bias confirmation,
Yes.
uh, and as I said to somebody earlier tonight, I really like it when people agree with me. It makes me makes me gives me something. And so people do tend to get together and support each other and entrench each other in whatever dream that they've got going, kind of thing. So it also can take on a defensive shell, that kind of thing. So it can be, yeah. I've got a bunch of people that I would call friends, and I'm probably a bit more of a loner than I am a friendly kind of person. I'm friendly with everybody, but I don't have a lot of intimate friends. But I go out with a bunch of people who almost universally they're right wing in their attitude to people, and they're racist and they yet they're all nice people. If I just look at them from the right perspective, they're nice people. They can't help it. They watch the wrong bloody television channel. That's why they're like that, kind of thing. So it's easy to forgive them for not having the same worldview as me, and I know that if I tried to explain my worldview to them, they'd end up putting me in a loony bin.
I know the feeling.
So there is a possibility of something going on here that might be worth considering. That is it or not? Maybe we don't even need an answer to that. But that could be things like loneliness, or things like not belonging to that group, kind of thing. That's pretty fundamental, basic kind of stuff for us as a herd animal. We don't like to get kicked out of the group. That's pretty much standard stuff. So we want to be friends. We want to be easy to get on with most of the time. We don't have anything to prove anymore. So yeah, they can be the way they are, and that's it. Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's very complex, isn't it?
It is. I don't want to say that they're wrong in any way.
No, well, you don't know they are.
No, not at all.
So, I mean, I like chocolate ice cream. Do all people that prefer vanilla, are they stupid? So this is another tricky one, and I can remember that I had a phase where that are the same kind of stupid arguments that person put to you. If you just do nothing, the world will go to hell in a handbasket. Well, I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry. It'll come back. I won't chase it. How are you, Jed?
right. Um, yeah. Yeah, I had an interesting morning. I had another really shit sleep, and so it was good in a way because having spoke to you a couple of days ago, it was uh it was really live. Thinking about having ideas about how to respond to, and just being able to watch more, being kind of ready to watch and notice, and not kind of get sucked into the stories, I suppose. So it was a good experience, really. This morning, waking up feeling, well, I had just a terrible night, and all the usual kind of stories just started to come up, and I managed not to get sucked into them. So it was good.
Hmm. There's nothing quite like being tested. Uh,
Being pestered.
well, and passing. Yeah.
Oh, being tested. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Shit turns up and I didn't respond. Oh, good on me. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose I'd feel. My first thought was a bit liberated, from that particular pattern of suffering, and today at least liberated from it.
Mm. Well, remember this: that if it comes back, it's not it coming back. It's a version of it. It's a new one. It's different each time. We never can have exactly the same one again. Hi, Kate. Good to see you.
Yeah, and there's plenty others I'm get sucked into, but I guess it's good practice, and it kind of I have this image of a jigsaw. You start off and it's just a load of chaos and mess, and then gradually, the gaps get filled in, and it's easier to find the next piece or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, every time there's a little shift that happens, it supports the next one and it supports the other ones. It spreads and accumulates. Yeah. Sometimes it's just like watching grass grow. It seems to be not happening. Mm.
Yeah, that too. I had a bit of kind of, I suppose, a bit of fear really about, um, yeah, kind of fear about how to know how to respond, and do I just relax with it? Uh,
Do you hear yourself when you say how to respond? Oh, okay. Oh, so you've got a choice, have you? And you can choose and control the outcome.
well, I can say no, but there is a way in which, there's a way in which
Yeah.
I haven't untangled the bit that, I can step back or, look at somebody else's story and say, none of it's, nobody has any control over it. Vince is frozen.
Yeah, my picture's frozen, but I can hear you okay.
You can hear me okay. Yeah, I guess on some level I want to I want to say that, yeah, I can hear you fine. Yeah, can you hear me?
Right. Yes.
I don't know. It seems not possible for me at the moment to, and I guess, well, I was going to say that to be aware that I'm thinking all the time that I'm thinking. There are times when I'm not. Oh, he's gone. Tim, you're the host.
So what it says.
Yeah.
Is that
Were you
by
first?
default or design?
Yeah.
Which?
I guess you were the first to arrive today, were you?
Oh, is that how it works?
Maybe.
Okay, carry on
So.
if you want.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was saying there are times when I'm not aware that I'm thinking, I'm kind of lost in the thinking. And there he is.
So when that happens, have you found that those periods become more contracted, or you just notice earlier, or both, or neither?
Do you mean has there been a kind of shift
Yeah, the
over the years?
recognition that you are thinking, or there's thinking, is that more frequent? Do you sort of
Yeah.
catch the stories more quickly and then they just cut off more
Yeah.
these days? Or yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
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 Is it particularly more difficult in the night to do that during the night?
Yes, I think if I'm like half dozing, but if I awake fully, I think maybe it's similar. But I think
Yeah.
what I'm trying to get at is there's a bit where I guess when I'm lost in my thinking, I'm believing that I have some choice and that my thinking is going to determine what I do or what
Okay.
happens next.
So there might be consequences to the train of thought you're having, that it might
Yes,
result in something happening. Is that what you mean?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and that how that I can decide on A or B. When I'm lost in
Okay.
those thoughts,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what it seems like, and I guess that's yeah.
And when that happens, when you recognize that, does that exacerbate it? And you think, oh no, I'm thinking again, and that might mean that blah blah blah. Is there a sort of add-on to that, as it were?
I don't think so.
Is there a
Um,
feeling, that you contract and you think, oh no, oh he's gone.
Not so much, no. I'm just kind of noticing that I get sucked into the story of me, I suppose, when I'm
Sure.
lost in thought, and it's
Uh, yeah, the reason I asked about nights is because I have a history of poor sleep. I was going to say insomnia, but again, it depends how you define that. I mean, I used to blame, as if there was a single cause, the birth of our children, interrupting a sleep pattern. But looking back, it was before then, but, and I know there isn't a cause per se at all. But what my response over a number of years was just anger. I got really annoyed that I couldn't sleep, which of course exacerbated it, influenced my mood when I got up. And I was often a pain in the ass to be around, certainly first thing. And I'd feel physical fatigue as a result. And this is for years and years. And I've noticed now that for some reason I'm sleeping better and it's improved, but I don't usually get caught in a story, in a train of thought. Something, it sort of arises and subsides, and I can nod off again. Sometimes maybe up to half an hour. I don't look anymore. I think, oh God, it's 3:30. That's all gone. But I'm imagining it's something like half an hour. But it's become much easier. And I gather, or I'm imagining from previous sharings that you've offered, that this has been ongoing for you for a while, or not, the sleep thing, or not?
Uh, Well, I've certainly had years of it in the past, but this year it's kind of really settled down. But
Oh,
I'm
right.
trying,
Okay. Sorry. I'd imagine it was still bothering you a bit. Sorry. It's
no, it's
intermittent, is it?
usually,
These bad nights? Or?
it's just a recent period to do with external factors of,
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was imagining it had been, and I stressed the word imagining it had been longer.
yeah,
Okay.
that's no
Well, that's
nonsense.
something. That's good. Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, no, it's
And
generally
I,
fine. Sorry
I'd
then.
just like to throw into you the reframe that it's not the external factors, it's your attitude towards them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I
That's what I
mean,
realized.
so what?
Yeah.
I've got loads of allergies because I'm having to stay in a dog house with dogs. So my asthma's really bad, and I can't breathe so well. So I can't. It's hard to sleep with that, and just like the temperature's different in the house, and so I get too hot, and then I can't sleep. So I mean, I think they are external. Would you
Oh yeah,
say that?
yeah. But it's still not that causes the suffering. I mean, they're the triggers for.
Hmm.
That's what causes the insomnia. But the insomnia is, you're saying the insomnia is not suffering. It's how I relate to the insomnia.
Not yeah. It's not the insomnia itself.
Sure.
It's very definitely the story about it shouldn't be there. That's where the suffering comes from.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
But I mean, the reason I even just throw that at you as a reframe is we we there's a period where it's really important that we are accurate when we describe these things to ourselves. And when we say it's due to external circumstances, we create a story that we relate to. And that is that we give these external circumstances power and say that we're a victim, and we create a self when we in that process of doing that. Whereas if you say you can see quite clearly that there is a spontaneous relationship with whatever turns up, and that's what you're responding to, then I mean, we can use stupid stories like take responsibility and stuff like that, but that doesn't really cut it either. No. So it starts off as a gross thing, just to start being more accurate. Right? That I'm sure you can see that the same external circumstances when you're feeling good will have a different reaction from you than when you're feeling really tired or sick. You'll have a different reaction then. And it's the same circumstances. Or the person next to you has a totally different response to those circumstances. So you can see it's not the circumstances themselves that have any direct link on creating these emotions or these sensations or these experiences in you. It's something in you that does that. So even if you just get that at a logical level, it changes the way you describe things. And what
Do you
we're
mean
doing is
the,
retraining the brain. So that description, the better version of a description helps in that retraining. Sorry, go on.
it's okay. So do you mean it's the dynamic between my body and these circumstances?
No. I'm not. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that these circumstances don't have an effect on your body, right? And even if that effect is difficulty breathing, right, then that there is that. But there's a huge difference between that and fighting it. You fighting it.
Oh yeah. No, of
Yeah.
course, yeah. I think you get, maybe I'm not explaining. Yeah, I mean, of course, I get that how I relate to the reaction in my body is where the suffering
Mm.
is. Um, what are you saying that? So what I'm saying is, tell me if this is like a kind of a wrong description. The conditions in this house have an effect on my body, which impacts how I sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and then
That sounds good. Yeah.
I have different emotional responses, or how
Yeah,
much I can
exactly. There,
scream
now you're
about that.
talking. There.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's a good description. That's literal description, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah. And there's no blame or no cause and effect thing. There is just this sequence of things that you notice have an effect. See, I right at the moment, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I got discharged from the Navy back in late 1960 something, 68, I think it was. I got discharged from the Navy with an endogenous dermatitis, incurable dermatitis. Right? And they sent me to Harley Street specialists and specialists in Melbourne and whatever. Nobody could do anything about it, And here we go, 60 years later, I've still got it. And right at the moment, it's a bit active around my left ankle in particular, like it's there. Once upon a time, it would have driven me crazy. It would have just, it would have been, I've got to do something about it. Now, we've tried everything, and as recently as, I suppose about 2 years ago, or maybe 3, I went to specialists here and we had another go at it, and they still couldn't do anything about it, so it's just something, it comes and goes. Well, at the moment, it's here. I suspect it could have something to do with air conditioners in wintertime, drying my skin out, maybe, I don't know, but it's just here. I just live with it. It doesn't drive me crazy anymore. I don't even bother to put an ointment on it all the time. I put ointment on it if it gets really bad because it helps it heal faster. And that's because I've scratched it, because it's been itchy and so on. But all I'm saying is that there is the physical thing that happens, but we've got to be careful not to call it with a label that creates it as a something, right? So as long as we can keep it as a description of, so better not to use medical terms to say, when I said I've got endogenous dermatitis, that's a stupid thing to say from one perspective, and that is that, it's, who knows, my version of it is probably different to other people's version of it. I don't know. So really all I can say is that, my skin gets really, really itchy and I scratch it and I bleed sometimes. But I also have to say now, so what? It's just there until it's not, and it might go away soon and I might not see it for another year or 2 years. I've had 2 years break from it,
hmm
but here it is at the moment, just here. would I speculate that I'm uptight or something? No, well, don't feel like it is. I don't know. Well, I'm not even bothered. Not bothered to think about it. It's just there. Yeah. And if it itches, I'll scratch it. Whereas I used to feel bad, and my wife still says, "Don't scratch it." Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the difference between something that actually happens and accepting it or fighting it. So if you're going to have a war with it, that's going to become the biggest part of it. And that's where the suffering comes from. Yeah. But of course, that doesn't mean that you don't do practical things. If you have trouble breathing, well, you use your Ventolin, or do whatever you need to do, you know. You just, we just got to live with it. No way around it.
Yeah. Hmm.
But when you get lost in thought, like you were describing, would you go as far as to say, always, at some point, you'll realise that has happened?
No, not always. I mean, sometimes, I just go on to the next thing, and I've
Yeah,
forgotten
yeah.
there was a period of being lost in thought.
Mm. Would you say there's any pattern, or are there any characteristics that might turn up that make it more likely that you'll become aware of it than other times, that are not there when you just move on to the next thing and it's not realised?
Probably,
The really bad ones you'd know, wouldn't you?
yeah, exactly. The more intense the body experience is, the more I kind of get a signal, I suppose, that something's going on.
Yes, yeah. So are you getting the message of throwing this message at you? Are you getting the message that we don't expect these things to disappear, to stop? They're going to happen if they happen.
Uh, uh, right.
And the hero at the end of this journey is going to say, I don't mind what happens, because there's no point in minding, because it's already happened. I
Yeah,
don't mind. I'm not fighting it. Yeah, bring it on.
yeah, I see that that's the kind of the journey that I'm on. Yeah, and there's a few kind of spectres on the horizon that I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to have to face that at some point. I'm still pretty scared of that. I'm not ready for that to come on. But I guess when it does,
You
I'll
will be, though. The time will come when
practice.
you'll say, bring it on, baby. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
I'm going to have to go in a minute because my wife's message and is coming back for lunch. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, thank you everyone, and whoever's
Cheers,
not
Tim.
here now. Rod.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
Thank,
See you soon.
thanks, Tim.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Bye, Jade. Cheers.
Right, Tim. So did this start an hour and 45 ago, Vince?
Yes.
And is the time going to change again soon? Or will this one?
It will change when you guys when you go out of daylight saving, which is about a week or two away.
That's right.
Yeah. So I'll just leave it at the East Coast Australian or Australian daylight saving time, AEDT, and that way you can adjust. Otherwise, I've got to do it for everybody.
I see. I see. So it's just us who change in relation
Yeah.
to.
So it'll be it's now it's an hour earlier for you now than it was. Yeah, and when your time goes, it'll be back to the or normal time. It'll be an hour later than this
I got it.
when your time changes. Yeah.
So can I ask you again then, this thing I said before, and you know, you pulled me up on the idea that I had choice there, that which way to go with in responding to something. Although I can see I don't have choice really, as I can believe it sometimes, there's still a, would it be fair to say there's I can have a belief that will guide me. So like the way you know, what you say to me now will have an impact on which way I go, even if, you know, I don't have
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
agency in going that way at the time. So in a way, I guess it's what I want to say is it's still a relevant question, even though I might have framed it in language
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. No,
incorrect.
I get what you're saying. I hear you. Yeah. Yeah. So there's I mean, there's a lot in this. There's a lot here. So you can know that you haven't got a choice, right? And there's no question in your mind that that things happen the way that they've happened, and the idea of having a choice about it is rather, it's just there's no actual choice there, yet it feels like there's a choice. So there's that aspect to it. But then there's also we can adopt a perspective to describe something as if there was a choice there when there's not actually a choice. And that can just be a way of saying, you know, well, I, I walked across the room that way and sat down, but I could have walked around the other way. Well, it sounds like a choice, you know,
Yeah.
but if you describe what actually happened, there was never a choice. Right? So even if I go, will I go that way or will I go that way? Right. So it sounds like I'm trying to make a decision that I'm going to go that way or that way, and then I go, well, I'm going to decide that I'll go that way, and now I'll actually go that way. So that must mean that I made a choice to do it that way. But then if we go back and look at what actually happened, right, there was consideration about that way or that way. And then the thought turned up to go that way. And then it happened that I went that way
Yeah, you had no
because I've
agency there.
I've
But don't,
also seen myself decide to go that way, but actually go that way,
oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
you know? So, I mean, just because I went the way that my mind said I was going to go doesn't mean that my mind caused it.
But do you still have to make a choice though? Even though the choice was the only choice you could make, you've got to make a choice.
Well, you can just call it a choice, you know. So if you say to me, do you want vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream? I'm going to pretty quickly say chocolate. And it's not because I made the choice to say chocolate. It's because I recognise that I prefer chocolate. I like chocolate.
So that's a really, I mean, I get you in that case, but when there's something that's a bit more complex, and maybe they're all like that for you now, I don't know, but if there's something that's a bit more complex that seems to require weighing up of various factors.
Yeah, so weighing up will happen. Of course, there'll be conscious, and I also recognise that there'll be unconscious things involved in the weighing up. So I might go, well, if I do that, the logical outcome for that is da da da, and if I do that, the logical outcome is something else, you know. But then I might consult my gut. Which way feels the best? The gut says that way, so I'll go that way. Did I decide to follow my gut? Or did just that's what my gut said, or that's the way I interpreted what my gut said, and then that's what happened?
So you act like you've got agency in a way. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, but the reality is that that's very limited, and it's not actual agency. It just appears to be agency.
Yeah, sure.
So here's a great example. I mean, on Thursday afternoon, today's Saturday, yeah. So 2 days ago in the afternoon, I played bowls. My wife and I play bowls each Thursday, and you roll this ball down, and you got to make it stop right near a little ball at the other end. You know, so it's gonna curve out and go around and come down and come stop. And you can say, well, I didn't go wide enough, or I went too wide, and I threw it too hard and not or too soft. I didn't throw it exactly the right amount. So I've got the intention to point it down there, but it goes out there. I didn't intend it to go out there. Why the fuck did it go out there? I told it to go there. So I say, and everybody laughs when I say it. I say, why didn't it do what I told it to do? Huh? That's just the way it works. I can't make it do anything. All I can do is do my best, and the outcome is quite independent of that. So I have good ones and I have not so. I have really bad ones and some really good ones. Yeah, and it's all luck. But even luck's only a way of describing what happened. So if I have a good one and I say, oh yeah, I did that on purpose. Well, I joke about that. I say to somebody, you think you did that on purpose? Do it again. Show me. And they never can, of course. Or they could be lucky, I guess. But yeah. So it's really a case of you put what you've got into it, and the outcome has got its own life. But the idea that we've got to break, and you are breaking it for sure, yeah, it's definitely happening for you, is the idea that thoughts cause action. Now, thoughts are just like the breeze outside. It's there or it's not there. It's coming from that direction or that direction. You can do nothing about it except witness it, nothing else. You can shout at it. You can say, "Don't come, don't be here, breeze." How crazy is that? You might as well say, "Well, don't think, Jed."
Yeah, yeah. I think what I'm trying to get at, I think, is like in the simple decisions like chocolate or vanilla, I can just let my gut decide, as it were, and go with it. And on the big decisions, I can as well, pretty much, it seems. But then there's all these lots of things where I'm not consciously
Yeah,
letting go of thinking and the idea of agency. And I'm wondering, is that something I want to get more of? You know, is that something to develop? You know, or just let it all go? And sometimes I'm lost in thought, and sometimes I'm not. And do you know what I mean?
Mm. Yes,
Kind of.
I know. I know. I'm just being funny. Yeah. Uh, um, that's going to happen, isn't it? That's going to happen anyway. Exactly. So you can think, but see here, but so there's something that we haven't brought into this equation, and that is that the consequences of seeing that there's no control, and maybe we've got to wait for the nervous system to catch up with that one, and then but at a certain point you find yourself, how do I put it, consulting life for what to do or for what to allow, what's going to happen, so
Do you mean like just let life unfold and see where life?
it does, yeah, it does it, yeah. So I don't know. Well, like I was just trying to think of an example. I had one today, but I've forgotten what it was. But essentially, I found myself somewhere. I can't remember what the exact example is, but I found myself somewhere, and because I was there, I went, "Oh, that's right. I was going to do such and such." And because I was there, and the thought turned up to do it, I did it.
Mhm.
And it was like I didn't go there with the intention to do that. But when I got there, what got triggered was that there was an intention before to do something.
Mhm.
It's just like you're walking along and you spot a bit of rubbish on the floor. Well, you just bend over and pick it up. Or not. Maybe you don't. But you don't agonize over it.
Yeah, I wonder why this is kind of. It seems important to me. The first thought is I want to be more free, but I think what I mean by that is I suppose I can see that I get tense and stressed when I'm lost in thought, I guess. Often, not always. I think there's something kind of theoretical about it as well, a bit intellectual. Like, as I've been talking to people about this stuff, it's just making me think about the details of it.
Well, that's good. The more detail we get into, the more clarity we have around it. And that's a general statement, but it's true, that we can't go into the details without the whole thing dismantling, kind of thing. We start to see the components involved in it.
Yeah.
See, I could see the clock as a overbearing tyrant that says I've got to do things by this time and that time and so on, or I can see it as an advisor offering
Mm.
something. or I can see it as just part of the landscape that I'll sometimes take notice of and sometimes I won't. There's a whole lot of different, but it's our relationship to these things.
Yeah.
So, but you can imagine if I saw it as a tyrant that was ordering me around, it's going to create stress and all sorts of negative responses that might be there. I'm going to suffer. But it advises me.
Nice.
It doesn't demand that I get up out of bed at a certain time, but it advises me, you know. So I need to be at golf at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. So I'll use it. I'll set an alarm and I'll use it and I'll say, well, around about 10 to 7, I'll embark on the trip to the golf club because it's going to take me 7 minutes to get there, and so on. So it's just advice, nothing mandatory about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice framing that, because so many people do see it as a tyrant, don't they? It's
Mm.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna go, Vince.
Okay. Yeah. I'll have an early night tonight. This will be a 2-hour meeting.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, man.
All right. Thanks,
See ya.
Jed.
Cheers, Vince. Bye.